Hello, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us for tonight's event to celebrate the launch of Guide to Indigenous Baltimore app, the illustrated guide to East Baltimore's historic American Indian Reservation, and BaltimoreReservation.com. My name is Annalisa Diaz, and I'm the Director of Artistic Partnerships and Innovation at Baltimore Center Stage. We are honored and thrilled to be co-hosting this evening's event with the Baltimore American Indian Center, and to be supporting this important work by Dr. Ashley Minner and Dr. Elizabeth Rule and all of their many collaborators. Linda, would you like to say hello and welcome on behalf of the Baltimore American Indian Center?
Hello, and thank you for having us. Good evening. My name is Linda Cox, and I'm the daughter of Elizabeth Locklear from the we're from the Lumbee tribe, and my mom was one of the founders. So on behalf of the Baltimore American Indian Center, the board of directors, and all of our community, we say thank you very much for including us in this evening's great event.
Thank you, Linda. Before we move into the event, a few quick housekeeping notes. We do have both ASL and captioning support tonight. If you need captioning, please click on the link in the stream text, which is in the chat right now. And we are planning to have an opportunity at the end of the event for questions from the audience. So if you have questions throughout the event, please drop them in the chat so we can collect them. Now, I would like to introduce Keith Colston, who will be serving as tonight's MC. Mr. Colston of the Tuscarora and Lumbee tribes is an internationally recognized cultural consultant for American Indian people. He initiates and supports a wide range of activities that promote the welfare of Indian people and furthers the understanding of American history and cultures. Through his work, he provides a forum for concerns of American Indian communities and serves as a vital liaison to state and federal agencies concerning cultural competency. Keith will now introduce Mr. Rico Newman for a land acknowledgement. And thank you again to everyone for being with us tonight. And Linda and I will see you all again at the end of this evening.
Juan Skenehe Nyawe. Just want to say welcome to everyone. Thank you. In my language, we say Nyawe to Annalisa. And again, greetings to everyone who has taken their time to be with us here tonight. Such an incredible event. And we have some just as equally incredible people who we're going to be sharing some information with in their own, of course, in their own words. It's my honor to introduce my friend, more so my Renandus, my brother, which in my language means exactly that, my brother, Mr. Rico Newman. He a member of the Elders Council and a member of the Choptico Band of the Piscataway Conoy tribe, an educator, orator, and an artist. Rico has served many years in several capacities on the Maryland Commission on Indian Affairs under the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives, and he is currently serving on the Prince George's County Minority Judicial Committee, the Yakahonic Foundation Board of Directors, and as chair of the Maryland Indian Tourism Association, which works to bring awareness of historic sites and their significance in the tribal lands and communities of today's Piscataway people. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Rico Newman.
Willie Gisco, thank you. Willie Wilako Torelama Okilaku Mokik, Nulalenta Meli Pion. Ni Koyo Jose ne Winnie Chop the Con Okitawe Kanoe, Kamigo, Yagio Kana Hagayi. Good day, friends and relatives. We are glad that you are all here. But let us begin by acknowledging the winds, waters, land, animals, plants, and people that influence our life waves. Land acknowledgements are powerful statements acknowledging our continued presence and the enduring relationship existing between indigenous people and their homelands. Acknowledging the land is a critical public intervention that opens a door to understanding that is a necessary step towards social justice in honoring Native communities and enacting the larger projects of decolonization, reconciliation, rematriation, and institutional accountability that must follow rhetoric. We acknowledge that our efforts are carried out on the homelands of the Piscataway diaspora, who respectfully acknowledge and honor all indigenous communities, past, present, and future generations, for their ongoing relationship with the land. We look forward to our continued collective stewardship, respect, and reciprocity so ably acknowledged in our relationships with the land and the waters. With Teha, Ankutahemo. With our hearts, we shake your hands. Aho.
Thank you, Mr. Rico Newman. Friends, today we are gathered to launch and celebrate several of first-of-their-kind free public resources that uplift American Indian history and living heritage in East Baltimore. In the course of this program, we'll hear from several of the individuals who have worked on these resources, and we'll also hear from you during the time set aside for live Q&A, folks. We will conclude our time together with, of course, a traditional honor song. But first, I would like to introduce Ms. Jane Brown, the President and Executive Director of the Robert W. Deutsch Foundation, which serves to invest in innovative people, projects, and ideas that improve the quality of life in Baltimore and beyond, such as the projects we are here to celebrate this evening. This came to fruition as a result of the Foundation's investment in the work of Dr. Ashley Minner. And so at this time, Jane, if you wouldn't mind sharing some welcoming remarks at this time.
Sure. Thank you, Keith, and congratulations to everyone involved in this incredible project. The Robert W. Deutsch Foundation is so proud to support the Illustrated Guide to East Baltimore's historic American Indian Reservation, the BaltimoreReservation.com website, and the Guide to Indigenous Baltimore phone app. I have witnessed the dedicated work of the extraordinary Ashley Minner for many years, mostly as an artist. And it was an honor and privilege to be able to name her a 2021 Deutsch Foundation Fellow earlier this year and provide her with the financial resources necessary to develop and complete these beautiful, accessible tools for the benefit of Baltimore's American Indian community, Baltimore residents, scholars, and historians, and the general public. So congratulations to Ashley and all of her incredible collaborators on this wonderful occasion. Thanks so much for including me.
Thank you, Jane. At this time, I would like to formally introduce Dr. Ashley Minner, an individual I have known and worked with for many years. Ashley is a community-based visual artist and an enrolled member of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. She recently accepted a position as Assistant Curator for History and Culture at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. And we are so proud of her. Ashley has worked for the greater recognition and advancement of American Indian peoples in the state of Maryland and in many capacities. Over decades, ladies and gentlemen, leading up to this achievement, the projects we are celebrating today are the results of Ashley's research and advocacy over many years. And so, Ashley, please give us some of your background information on the project being launched this evening.
Thank you, Keith. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking time to celebrate with us on this most auspicious occasion, the launch of the Illustrated Guide to East Baltimore's Historic American Indian Reservation, BaltimoreReservation.com, and the Guide to Indigenous Baltimore phone app. So many people have contributed to bringing these projects to life. I won't attempt to name everyone's name now, but when you visit BaltimoreReservation.com, you'll find a thank you list that's about a mile long and growing. I suppose I've been working on the research that's the foundation of these projects my whole life, as a member of our community and as an artist and an educator in our community. But I can pinpoint the day the information really began to take form as a walking tour. On October 16th, 2016, Dr. Mary Corbin Cease's Museum Studies class from the University of Maryland College Park visited Baltimore to go on a very short walking tour of the historic heart of our present-day American Indian community, It was supposed to be a super short tour because we only have a few active sites remaining in the neighborhood. We started here at South Broadway Baptist and had intended to visit the Baltimore American Indian Center, 1 block north, then the former Indian Center daycare across the street on Lombard, and that would have been it, except for on this day, Linda Cox was with me. Because she is my elder and her relationship to this place and her knowledge of the community is much greater than my own, I asked if she would lead the tour, and she did. To my surprise, she stopped us right next door to the church and asked me to tell folks about an Indian store I never knew existed at 207 South Broadway, which is part of El Salvador Restaurant today. This caused me to realize that with anywhere from 2,000 to 7,000 Indians living in this little neighborhood during the time it was known as the Reservation, roughly the 1950s through the early 1970s, we must have had more than just a church, an Indian center, and a daycare. And let me pause right here and say there has never been an officially designated reservation in Baltimore City. This neighborhood was called the Reservation affectionately by Indian people who had migrated to this city seeking work and a better quality of life and settled here, Lumbees and members of other tribal nations. They knew this was where they would find people who looked like them and who understood them and where they were coming from. It was the place they chose to make their home away from home. To find out what we used to have here, I convened several groups of American Indian elders on several occasions. It was they who reconstructed the neighborhood of their youth from memory. Then I did a ton of archival digging to find documentation that backed up everything they said. I was truly surprised and excited by how much I found. And of course, many of you have been in on this process through social media posts and newsletters all along. These elders have allowed me to call on them and message them for information whenever I needed it. They have checked in with me and checked what I put together multiple times. They've allowed me to interview them. They've gone back to the neighborhood and walked with me. And the resources we're launching today are for everyone, but first they're for the elders. My generation is here because they came first. I've had the opportunities I've had in life because of their sacrifices. I'm walking around today because their prayers keep me covered. Again, I'm not even attempting to name everyone's name tonight, but I do want to recognize these folks in particular. These are the elders who have worked with me in bringing this to life. My cousins, Sarah Arnold and James Bowen, Gerald Butler, Jimbo and Jovina Chavis, Vernon Chavis, rest in peace, Linda Cox, Chris and Norm Emanuel, Maddie Ty Fields, Cynthia Gale Rebels Haas, Reverend Riedel Hammonds, Carl Harding, Annabelle Hunt, Hal Hunt Sr., Howard Riedel Hunt, Jeanette Hunt, Slim Hunt, rest in peace, Heyman Jonesy Jones, Aunt Jeanette Walker Jones, Mary Helen Lewis, Carl Mr. Charlie Locklear, Donald Locklear, Earl Vernon Locklear, James Earl Locklear, Lizzie and Maurice Locklear, my cousin Minnie S. Maynor, Roy Maynor, Aunt Carol Meekins, Frida Sampson Minor, my mother, Mr. Rico Newman, Dan Nicholas, Bradley Brownie Oxendine, Rebecca Holmes Oxendine, rest in peace, Robert Doc Oxendine, rest in peace, Barry Richardson, Aunt Dorothy Sampson, James A. Sampson Sr., my poppy, rest in peace, Uncle Erwin Hayes Sampson, rest in peace, Alan T. Snow, Early Strickland, George Thompson, Shelvia Tobash, and Uncle John Walker, rest in peace. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to all of the elders who put in the work and didn't live to know about these projects or see this day. Thank you. If you're wondering what happened to the reservation and why we don't have it anymore, the reasons are complex. Yes, they include urban renewal and gentrification, but also upward mobility. These elders will let you know very quickly that our people are not victims. That's not a story we're interested in telling. Our people are strong, we adapt to our circumstances, and we're still here, just for the most part living in other places. We ended up documenting about 50 sites, most of them on the reservation proper, with some others in other parts of the city. We have gorgeous contemporary photos of the sites thanks to my good friend and longtime collaborator, Sean Scheidt, who spent many a day traipsing around the city with me and his camera. And I need to say that these resources don't include everything that ever was. For example, no one's current house has been included for obvious reasons. I also know there are businesses and other important sites we've missed. We're not done. If you know of sites that haven't been included, or if you know of corrections that need to be made, please reach out. I'll be interviewing folks for the foreseeable future. One day soon, we hope to have a workshop at the Indian Center to teach people to record their own interviews and bring in their photographs to scan. We focused on a specific time period that has passed, but we're not only interested in history. We're interested in heritage, which is living. We need to let people know we are still here, where they can find us, and how they can support our community. I'm pleased to say that because of this work, the Maryland Historical Trust applied for and received funding from the National Park Service to update the historic designations of the neighborhoods where the reservation was located to include American Indian history and heritage. We have a brand new archive at UMBC, and the recent chairman of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, Mr. Harvey Godwin, thanked me personally and said the work we're doing in Baltimore helped to get the bill for full Lumbee federal recognition before committee to be considered by Congress again. So what we're doing is making a difference, and people are going to start recognizing we are here and we've been here for a long time. The print illustrated guide to East Baltimore's historic American Indian Reservation highlights just 17 sites. It includes a gorgeous fold-out map designed by Robert Cronin, featuring his original to-scale illustrations of several of the buildings, some of which no longer exist, and an accompanying booklet designed by Julia Evans, who basically made this project her second job for the past year. The guide is a functional object, but Bob and Julia made it art. And Phil Civitarese put it on paper for us. The print guide is still at press right now, but should be available within the next week. You can pick up your own free copy by visiting the Baltimore American Indian Center, South Broadway Baptist Church, East Baltimore Church of God, the Baltimore Visitor Center when it reopens, the Maryland State Welcome Centers at I-95 North and I-70, and a growing list of local culture and heritage organizations while supplies last, and I do anticipate future print runs. And you'll now have the opportunity to hear directly from the amazing folks who developed BaltimoreReservation.com and the Guide to Indigenous Baltimore phone app. And let's begin with Katie Lively, who is a multidisciplinary graphic designer specializing in branding, web design, and motion design. She currently works at the Human Rights Campaign as a senior marketing and design manager, and she is responsible for the beautiful, gorgeous site you will find at BaltimoreReservation.com. Katie, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, thank you so much, Ashley, and thank you to everyone for having me here. I use she, her pronouns. I will go ahead and begin sharing my screen. I'm also looking away at my other screen for notes. Okay, so everyone should be able to see that. So I designed this branding alongside Julia Evans, as Ashley Minner mentioned. The main goal was to both ensure accessibility while conveying the spirit of this project. So the color palette is drawn both from Baltimore and North Carolina, including a brick clay red and some pine tree green, We also pulled some inspiration from traditional Lumbee regalia for some of the accent colors that you'll especially see throughout the printed illustrated guide. The primary fonts we used are somewhat formal and academic, but they do have some subtle touches that we feel reflect the warmth and the heart of this project. So it's supposed to be this perfect meld of academia and heart. Finally, the logo, of course, includes some Baltimore bricks, which we had to have, which we've animated to look like building blocks to represent the community. When you first visit the site, I'll refresh it so you can see. You can view the logo animation right here. So the website will take you through each location on the tour, split into two main pages. The first page is the traditional walking tour in order of where it physically is. And the second page are some other sites of interest that we felt were important and wanted to include, but don't quite fit into the normal tour. There's some interactive elements and animated elements to make the experience a bit more immersive. Especially we have this film strip style navigation guide. So you can go through this and it kind of simulates walking down the street along this walking tour. And we began, oh, my computer's a little slow with the connection of screen sharing, but we began the site with showing this old black and white photo from the East Church of Baltimore and some of the congregants. Some of you here will probably recognize or hopefully recognize some elders, some family members, friends. And as you scroll, it becomes colorized. We wanted to begin this part of the site, symbolizing this history kind of coming back into light, bringing life back to it. We hope people are as excited as this is meant to symbolize. And sorry, screen sharing is making my computer glitch just a little bit. But as you go through the site, it will take you through all these locations so you can read at your leisure since it is a lot of information. And as Dr. Minner said, on the About page, you will find a very, very long thank you list. So we hope everyone can go and hopefully find your name and let us know if we missed you. So I will go ahead and stop screen sharing right now. All right, thanks. Apologies if I'm speaking a little quickly. Yeah, so we hope you all like the final result as much as we do.
Thank you so much, Katie. You're incredible, and so is this site. I can't tell you how many people have reached out about that photo. Just the photo alone that you colorized means so much to folks who remember those days at East Baltimore Church of God. Next, we'll hear from my friend and colleague, Dr. Elizabeth Rule, who is a citizen of the Chickasaw Nation. Dr. Rule is an assistant professor of critical race, gender, and culture studies at American University. Her research on Indigenous issues has been featured in the Washington Post, The Atlantic, and NPR, and more than 100 public speaking engagements have taken her across 3 continents into 7 countries. She is the creator of the Guide to Indigenous Lands Project, including the Guide to Indigenous DC, and her manuscript, Indigenous DC, Native Peoples and the Nation's Capital, is currently under contract with Georgetown University Press. Previously, Dr. Rule has held posts as a director of the Center for Indigenous Politics and Policy at George Washington University, MIT Indigenous Communities Fellow, and a Ford Foundation Fellow. Rule received her PhD from Brown University. Today, Dr. Rule will be speaking to you about the brand new Guide to Indigenous Baltimore. Take it away, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for that kind introduction. I am absolutely delighted to be here with you all this evening. I am just thrilled that you've tuned in to learn a little bit about the wonderful work that Dr. Minner has been working on alongside myself and all of our many collaborators and supporters. Today, I'm here to talk specifically about the Guide to Indigenous Baltimore. Now, the Guide to Indigenous Baltimore is a fully standalone mobile application and digital mapping project. I am so excited to say that it is available for free for you today, right now. It is available in the iOS format in the Apple App Store for all of you iPhone and iPad users out there. And it is also available in the Android format in the Google Play Store for those of you who use an Android phone. I hope you will also check out the running chat where you can see some of those download links where you can find these applications. As I said, I'm just delighted to partner with Dr. Ashley Minner on this work. The Guide to Indigenous Baltimore is the second iteration of my larger Guide to Indigenous Lands project. And this project really creates digital maps and mobile applications featuring sites of Indigenous importance on the city, state, tribal, and university levels, as well as nationally. The first iteration in this Guide to Indigenous Lands project was the Guide to Indigenous DC. I launched this project in 2019, and this particular project demonstrated Indigenous influences on our nation's capital. But for the past handful of months, I have collaborated with Dr. Minner to create this same type of public-facing educational resource, this time focused exclusively on the Baltimore American Indian community. And now I'm going to go ahead and share a demo of what users can expect when using the application. So we'll go ahead and pull that up. As you can see, it sits here on the home page. You open it up and click on that first site there. Here you'll see a description. This includes a little bit of backstory about the project, as well as some tips and tricks for utilizing it. Here we have the layout of all of the sites that are incorporated, as well as each individual site in a list format. You are certainly able to click any of those sites and go directly to a page that will tell you more about them and show you a photo gallery as well. Here you see you can also leave a comment. I wrote, "This is so cool," and also share. You can see here you can pull it up through Facebook, texting, or Twitter. And as you can see here, it pre-populates with some images and text as well. So there are many ways in which you can dynamically engage this tool. Next, we'll hit the start button. And in my case, I hit the virtual tour button. That's because I was physically located here at my home in Washington, D.C., but I want to access this app virtually. So here at Site 1, we'll see is the Emmanuel Tire Company. We have the address, dates, as well as some images. And if we click on those square images and scroll through at the top, we just have to click on them individually to see the larger photo. Now next, again, because I'm in the virtual format, I'm walking, and we can see in the account settings that we can change what type of map we want to use. We can also change how fast we want to virtually walk, whether that's fast, fastest, slow, slower. It really depends on your preferences for engaging this as a user. You can see you're also able to zoom in, zoom out, and really take a look at these sites and, again, consider Indigenous imprints upon the city of Baltimore from a variety of different angles. Now you'll see that my arrow is progressing slowly, so I went ahead and clicked on site number 2 in order to get there. Again, we're looking at some of the photos included in the photo galleries, as well as that description, our citations, and also the ability to leave a comment and share once again. There are so many ways to engage this tool. I really hope you will check it out. Now, you can end the tour at any time. I encourage you to give a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. That helps with our data on the feedback side. And also, you are able to join a mailing list if you'd like. So those are just some of the elements that you can expect to encounter when utilizing the Guide to Indigenous Baltimore mobile application. Now, I really hope that this video has inspired you to explore the Guide to Indigenous Baltimore mobile app. Whether you're an iPhone user or an Android user, there's something for everyone. As an Indigenous scholar myself, I have found that this format of digital mapping offers a dynamic way of showcasing our tribal communities in all of our beautiful diversity. You'll see that these sites perform the essential function of telling Indigenous stories from an Indigenous perspective and Indigenous-centered methods. Their subjects include houses of faith, restaurants, small businesses, local hangouts, and community serving offices. And this combination of sites really pushes back against stereotypes of Indigenous peoples as merely historical subjects. These sites together show our full humanity and beauty as Indigenous peoples. These pinpoints also span both space and time, allowing these marks on the map to show the fullness of the extent of Indigenous influences in this city of Baltimore. By making this resource available in a digital space, I hope you'll encourage others also to utilize this tool, whether they are physically located in Baltimore or elsewhere in the world. Again, there are so many ways to engage this mobile application. If you are physically there in this space, you can select to be geolocated in relation to these sites of Indigenous significance. It will show you which site is closest to you. If you want to see, is there one nearby? You also have the option of actually doing a walking tour, driving tour, which could include all or part of those sites in collaboration. Again, there are more of these tips and tricks for how to use the app contained on that homepage itself. This is a dynamic, diverse story that we're sharing with a global audience, and which most importantly, we hope the American Indian community of Baltimore enjoy. Thank you so much for your attention, for your enthusiasm and support, for joining us today. Again, I'm absolutely delighted to be working on this project, and I would love to hear any feedback you have. Again, if you are able to share it out on social media or leave a comment in the app, or if you have additional, suggestions, sites, points of feedback from the user perspective, I'm open and would love to hear any and all of that. So thank you so much again for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to introduce this work to you.
Wow, Elizabeth, it's so amazing. It's real. I'd like to invite Annalisa back up to the virtual stage to help us respond to some questions from the audience.
Hi, everybody. Wow, Ashley and Elizabeth, this is so amazing. Okay, so we are going to take some questions from the audience, and I have a couple that I want to ask myself. But this is your cue, audience members. If you've been sitting on a question and haven't yet put it in the chat, please do put it in the chat. I can see the chat, the YouTube chat. So if you are watching there, please drop your questions. But maybe a softball starting question from Stephanie was, what's the best way for individuals to support this project?
Well, we do have a fiscal sponsor now as a result of our collaboration with the Deutsch Foundation. So I suppose I will be dropping links to donate through Fractured Atlas to hopefully fund additional runs of the printed guide. And I don't know if Dr. Rule has ideas about how to continue to support the app.
I would say just, get out there, use these resources, and let us know that you're utilizing them. Any feedback from the user side is absolutely essential to making sure that we're doing that work of educating in a way that is, relevant and that resonates with you. And also, I would say, share this with your neighbors, friends, family, community members. These are such important stories and testimonies about our lives as Indigenous peoples, and in this case, particularly the Indigenous community of Baltimore. It's a story that is not very well known, and Dr. Minner has done an amazing job of, community collaborations, bringing those stories to light. I believe that the more people who utilize the Guide to Indigenous DC alongside the printed map, who access the website, the stronger we're going to be as a society as a whole.
Thank you. And I'd like to add that we do have an active community center, and to this day, one of the sites on all of the tours is the Baltimore American Indian Center at 113 South Broadway, and they can always use your support, whether it's attending events when we can have them or monetary donations and just spreading the word, like Elizabeth said.
Beautiful. Thank you. This leads me a little bit to a question that I had for both of you. Which is, what is the next step for each of you? I know, Ashley, you mentioned at the beginning that you're going to be doing interviews for the foreseeable future. And Elizabeth, you mentioned earlier that this walking tour is part of the greater Guide to Indigenous Lands project. And I wonder if maybe each of you could talk a little bit about next steps for the branching of this project. Ashley, can we start with you?
Sure. Interviewing elders and other community members is certainly my priority in all of this. It's been a terrible time for our community with the COVID-19 pandemic, and also just our institutional memory. Our elders won't be with us forever, and we've lost quite a few just since the project began. It's like I can't do the work fast enough. So that said, it's also somewhat urgent that other people learn how to do this stuff and get interested and start interviewing too, because I'm just one person. And all of this work is being collected in the Ashley Minner collection, in the Maryland Folklife Archives, in the Alban O'Kuhn Library of University of Maryland, Baltimore County, which is publicly accessible. And that way, all of our folks can get to all of our information and our heritage, and even have a measure of control over that heritage, because we're developing a shared stewardship agreement. And then also now in this new position with the Smithsonian, I think I will avail myself of the resources of the institution and start to work on my book. So we're going to have a book, y'all.
That's amazing. Congratulations on all of that, Ashley. Elizabeth, would you talk a little bit about the future of the Guide to Indigenous Lands project?
Absolutely. One of the things I always say when talking about this work is that it is constantly evolving. And that's precisely the point of these projects, right? To show that Native communities are here today, we're living, we're thriving, we're strong. There will never be enough points on a map to totally encapsulate Indigenous influences anywhere in the country. But I do think that there is work to be done around the curation of sites and making products like these that serve as resources that are easily accessible and easy to engage with from, K through 12 audiences through members of the general public who may not have any background familiarity with Native subjects, but that also at the same time, of course, serve our Indigenous communities and audiences themselves. For me personally, the next steps right now include finishing up my book manuscript. I'm currently working on a book titled Indigenous DC, Native Peoples and the Nation's Capital. This is a book project that elaborates on my work with the Guide to Indigenous DC. And so that's going to be, forthcoming here, hopefully pretty soon. But I'm also constantly creating additional versions of of this Guide to Indigenous Lands work. I have a couple of partners in the mix right now, Tribal, University, and a couple of others that are still in the really early phases. But again, I hope that you stay in touch and up to date so that you can see when additional iterations of the Guide to Indigenous Lands project continue to be launched.
Amazing. Thank you both. I'm excited for all these books that we're going to get in the next couple years. There was a question from an audience member. Let me see if I can find it again. They were interested in, Ashley, the oral histories that you collected. Are those able to be listened to on the website or the app, or where can folks listen to those if they're available?
Right now you can go to my new beautiful portfolio site at ashleyminnerart.com, also designed by the lovely Katie Lively. And you can listen to 10 oral histories that were taken some years ago from Lumbee elders living in Baltimore. And more are forthcoming. As with any sessions in the archives, they have to be processed, and then the whole public can hear them if that's deemed appropriate by the community.
Thank you. Okay, now all the questions are pouring in. Let me see here. Keith, our MC, had a question, which was, Dr. Rule, could you talk about working with state governments to bring this work to Native and non-Native state populations? And is there a path that you would encourage implementing with state agency to get their support?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And again, one of the things that I seek to do through the Guide to Indigenous Lands project is, again, create a series of mobile applications featuring digital maps that highlight Indigenous significance on a number of levels. Those can include, in this case, the city level, in the case of DC, the city or district level. But also I have some guides that are on the national level, such as the Guide to Tribal Colleges and Universities. That's a map contained actually within the Guide to Indigenous DC application. But I am very interested in working with state governments as well to highlight Indigenous impact and influence across states. I firmly believe that we need to have those types of tools, and that type of information is easily accessible and available to people. As you said, Native and non-Native, these are part of our state histories, parts of these lands that we're on, and I'm very interested in doing that state government collaboration work that you mentioned, Keith.
Okay, Ashley, there was one question for you that's a little bit switching gears and thinking more broadly. Could you talk a little bit about why Baltimore's Lumbee history maybe has been less well known outside the Lumbee community and relative to other cultural histories and events? And then maybe to tie it back to the project, could you talk a little bit about the significance of this project as it relates to making Lumbee history more accessible?
Sure. So we live in a settler colonial state, y'all. I'm talking about the United States of America, where Indigenous people are meant to disappear. And Baltimore is a city on the East Coast, which experienced colonization first, and people kind of don't expect to meet American Indians here. When the majority of Lumbee migration to Baltimore took place, there was no option on census forms, for example, to identify yourself as American Indian. It was black or white. Folks really didn't know what to make of us, and I feel like we haven't really been part of the narrative of the city or reflected in pop culture. Even in the city, it's easy to get lost up here. People aren't expecting to see us, and they don't see us. And when they do see us, they don't recognize us for who we are, even when we tell them who we are. So these projects are intended to educate and to lift up our histories, which are deep and wide. and to give especially our young people something to point to and say, hey, I belong here too. I belong here as much as anyone does. I have history here. I'm part of what makes Baltimore City great, and Baltimore County and the state of Maryland for that matter.
Thank you, Ashley. I think that is a beautiful note to end the evening on. And I know that there were a bunch of folks that still had questions, and it looks like there's a lot of folks that are thinking about using this work in classrooms, which is amazing and exciting. And I know that this event is the launch to a continued conversation and use of all of these amazing resources that Ashley, Elizabeth, and their teams have created. So continue the conversation. And with that, I will say a big thank you to Ashley and Elizabeth for all of your work on these projects. I can't wait to dive into the resources you've created. And thank you to everybody who joined us to celebrate tonight. A special thanks to our ASL interpreters and captioners for helping us make this event accessible. And as we conclude tonight's event, I'd like to invite Linda back up to the virtual stage for some closing remarks from the Baltimore American Indian Center, followed by a closing honor song from our MC, Keith Colston.
Thank you so much, Ashley, Dr. Rule, all of you, each and every one of you. My heart is overwhelmed with joy. My mom would be so happy. She's not here to experience this, but she still lives on through me and my family. So I am so grateful and so thankful tonight just to be a part of this. I say thank you when they say it takes a village. It is true, because we've definitely seen a village of people tonight coming together. And Ashley, you know I love you and I respect you. And I thank you so much for having the vision and using all of our people to make them feel they are special. We are here. We're not going nowhere. And our kids can be proud to go to tell their teachers. My grandson's going through that now, saying, hey, this is Native American month. I'm Native American. Well, he will have something. If time stands, our kids will have something that they can actually be very, very proud. And Ashley, we thank you for having the vision to putting it together. I just love y'all. Thank you so much on behalf of the Baltimore American Center. Me personally saying this because of my mom being one of the founders. I am just so happy to be a part of this group tonight. Thank y'all, every one of you. God bless you, and happy Thanksgiving. And Native American month at that. All right.
So as MC and Master of Ceremonies for tonight's event, I just want to make the comment. First, Miss Linda, you make it hard for me to be an MC because we're always to be in control of our emotions. And when you start to tear up that way, it makes it a little bit difficult for me. I mean, on a serious note, it's one of those things where when great work has been done, it will cause greater emotion. And that's truly what has occurred here tonight. I can tell you that from the listening to everyone, the information is provided. Here's a couple of comments I'll make before this honor song. One is that as an Eastern Woodland individual, tribal member, whether you want to say enrolled or by blood, it is an incredible thing to see our patriotic society being represented here tonight by the individuals who have done such great and amazing things. I would also like to comment on the generational situation that has occurred here tonight. First and foremost, by having Zayden help his grandmother out, and then Paula, her daughter, assisting, and then for her to truly bring up our elders who are no longer with us, which of course one being her mother. So this is something that I wanted to note because this is truly a part of the circle for tribal people to have that generational support and representation, and to actually see it working together. Not that we are talking about them in separate components, but they're actually working together. And so representation has clearly been not only spoken about here today, but it's been shown, it's been seen, and most importantly, it's been felt. So those are just some of my closing comments that I want to make. kudos, of course, to Dr. Ashley Minner. Kudos to Dr. Elizabeth Rule. I think it's so important that we represent ourselves not just from a cultural manner, but our success, our equal success in mainstream society. To our non-native supporters, helpers, friends, again, the Robert W. Deutsch Foundation and all of the individuals who have worked in that capacity and to assist. Again, we could probably spend the next hour thanking everyone in our own way. But again, truly, Yahweh, thank you to everyone who has been a part of this incredible project, and for those of you who will continue to support the project even after today, after this evening. So my song that I sing here tonight, it is in my language. When you hear the words, it says, "It is a good day." And I found it appropriate that this type of song be sung because it truly is a good day. As many of us will say, it's always a good day to be Indian. It's always a good day to be Native, to be Indigenous. Yeah, there are those times that some days do stick out a little more so, and this is truly that moment. So, ladies and gentlemen, individuals, all who are upon this meeting and event, I hope that you will give respect and honor to what has taken place, and you will continue to share this. And again, my honor song to all who have played this part in bringing this to fruition. Yahweh.